What is up, guys? My name is Steven Guadani with 5 Tool Sports Science. Got a really popular breakdown request here of Big Paul Skenes. All right, so this dude's like 6'6", 245, 250 pounds, so he's a big boy. All right, but he also does some things pretty well on the mound in terms of his sequencing, his front leg extension, and everything that we're going to look at in this breakdown. All right, so let's get into it real quick. This is his side view, so we're going to look at a side view, and then I've got a behind view as well that we can take a look at. Let's get him moving down the mound. So from peak leg lift to moving down the mound, like he really doesn't pick up that much momentum. All right, he just kind of goes to his peak leg lift and then starts loading into that back leg as he starts going down the mound. So really good job of holding torsion. Okay, so he's really shifted into that back hip. He's holding torsion as he's going down the mound. What I like that he does right here is he's keeping his pelvis closed. He's keeping that foot closed. He's keeping this front hip internally rotated. Okay, so he's holding tension really well in his pelvis. All right, let's take him a little bit farther down the mound. So as he starts going, you can even see right here, like right here, he's starting to initiate this internal rotation of the femur. All right, so he's going to start internally rotating that hip right there. All right, and we're going to see from his back view, he really doesn't go that much into horizontal abduction, so he's not really like a big pull apart guy, but he is very violent through his internal rotation of the pelvis, and that allows him to sequence pretty well here. So as he gets into front foot strike, right, about there, I would say he's got, weight bearing foot plant right there. All right, so he's got that hip actually peeked through really well. So that pelvis is open. He's sequenced his energy. He's done a good job of keeping himself delayed into that front foot strike. So he's got some separation, not a huge separation, not like an Araldis Chapman, tons of separation, but he's created enough torque. So when you're that big, when you're like 6'6", 250 pounds, you're this big, thick rubber band, a lot of times you don't have to create as much separation to pull slack out of the trunk. Think of a guy like Gratterall. Gratterall doesn't really create that much separation, but he sequences very efficiently where he's peaking his pelvis, he's keeping his trunk closed, then his trunk peaks, then his arm peaks. So he sequences the energy flow extremely well. That's kind of what Skenes does here. Skenes has got a longer stride, so he's probably using a little bit more linear energy, but that's what he does extremely well is sequence it, okay? So he's peaking his hips, he's got his trunk closed at front foot strike, all right? When we get to weight bearing front foot plant, forearm is flipped up, all right? So his arm is flipped up and on time. Then as he goes through shoulder rotation, that arm just goes into about 170, 180 degrees of layback, all right? So that's money, all right? Not a ton of thoracic extension here, but, enough, all right? So some decent flexion on the front leg. Let's see how he extends this front leg. Let's see what he does with his forward trunk tilts here. All right, going forward. In the ball release, right about there. All right, so he, decelerates the pelvis well. Not like a massive front leg kickback, but he's getting some front leg extension, and he's getting, decent forward trunk tilts. He's not that linear of a pitcher. He's really using a lot more rotational energy into his back leg, so I wouldn't expect him to get a ton of forward trunk tilts there. And I've actually seen videos where he gets, full extension off of that front leg, where this is a lot more violent. But in this exact rep, it's still a really good front leg block. I've just seen him get, full extension on it. So, those are some of the things that he does really, really well. All right, let's look at the back view now. All right, here we go from the back view. These videos are like in the corner, so that's why I'm a little offset here. But this is the back view. All right, let's see what we can see from this angle. All right, so as he starts to load down, there you can see how well he sits into that back hip, sifts into that back side, all right, starts to get his force vector a little bit angled there, okay? This is where you really see, like, he doesn't get a ton of horizontal abduction where he's pulling that arm apart, okay? Like, he's not really like a maximal hip to shoulder separation guy. You're gonna see he times it well to where he gets into foot strike and he creates separation, but again, like, being that big rubber band, he just doesn't have to pull apart as much as dudes like, Chapman pull apart, okay? So getting into front foot strike here, I can't really tell in this like where he's at, you know, weight bearing foot plant. So this one you can see he's trying to power that pelvis rotation. He looks a little smidgen late here, but you can see his glove side right there, and you can see that he's kept himself closed. All right, so this looks like his forearm, a little late, not terrible, you know. Shoot. All right, I'm getting a little technical difficulty. One sec, guys. All right, here we go. So back into that front foot strike. If I can get it to stop, it's ghosting on me. There we go. All right, so not flipped up at front foot strike, but not terrible either. So he's, you know, typically you want to see that forearm to be a little bit more flipped up or all the way up on time. You know, he's right here, a little bit behind on that one, but not awful. All right, so then you see his pelvis peeks through. All right, now his trunk is going to start to go, and then his arm starts to go into layback here. All right, so he goes into that maximum external rotation. You can see he's thrown pretty upright with his trunk. He doesn't get a lot of forward trunk tilt. He's not that linear of a pitcher. He sequences energy really well through his pelvis through rotation. Okay, so he gets that big body, that big frame, sequencing through the pelvis, delays his positioning, his arm timing well, to maximize what separation he does get, all right, and then he lets that arm kind of go into layback, and then he flips out into this 3/4 release, all right, so there he goes into ball release there. You can see he doesn't get that much forward trunk tilt, and we saw that from the side angle. I can't really see what his front leg's doing here, but he does a pretty good job of decelerating his pelvis and getting some front leg extension. He's not like the most elite front leg guy I've ever seen, but at his size, he doesn't have to be. I mean, that 6'6" frame, that body weight, that mass behind it, he moves well for his size. He sequences very well for his size. It's not like what I would say, like, oh, like the most efficient mechanics, or I, you know, I don't want to use the word efficient, but like the best mechanics in my opinion. But he's so big and he sequences so well that's why he can throw, you know, 101 miles per hour. On top of, you know, he talked about that he gained, I think, 12 pounds when he went to LSU. So I'm sure LSU strength and conditioning and nutrition staff had that dude working hard to build more muscle mass. So that's a good thing to see for guys that are smaller, that are coming in. My high school guys, college guys, even some of the pro guys, is like the emphasis still on adding mass and quality lean muscle mass is still there, even for one of the biggest dudes. Okay, so that just shows you how important nutrition, strength and conditioning, adding lean muscle mass is to increase pitching velocity. So yeah, those are some of the things that he does well. Hope you guys like the breakdown.